Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing 5 things I hate about my D22 Navara. I love you, please don't break down on the way home. 5 things that just drive me up the wall about this thing. Let's get into it. Number 1, it just has to be the steering setup. These things are notorious and they have one of the worst steering setups I've ever come across. There are too many ball joints in a row, particularly once you start lifting the car. There is so much play in that steering, it's not even funny. Now, I've gone through and done, after I put the 3/8 in, I immediately broke tie rods. You guys will know that. If not, link in the description below to the video. Immediately broke a tie rod, so I've got heavy duty tie rods, which required me to actually cut away some of the chassis. Also, heavy duty drag link from PSR as well, with a rotate only ball joint to eliminate a little bit of the steering play. We've also got the steering damper / return to center bar from Tough Dog. We've got the PSR idler arm brace. I have had to replace my idler arm recently as well, but the whole thing just steers like a bucket of pus and it's not very comfortable and there's still a lot of play. Wheel alignments are very, very hard and I feel bad for the poor bastards down at Tyre Power. Mick, you're a bloody legend for getting the alignment that you do on this car, because it's a nightmare. And when you've got that many ball joints in a row as well, you get a lot of bump steer, so it'll toe in and toe out once you hit bumps and whatnot on the road. That will also increase your tyre wear as well, ever so slightly, and it just, yeah. It's not great. I don't know whose idea this steering setup was. It's rubbish. Moving on to the next. And you know what? While we're on the front end, torsion bars, number 2. Torsion bars are, look, they're not great. They're not great. Good enough to pass, yes. Better than a leaf sprung front end, also yes. But realistically, it should have been a coilover design. I know the RC Colorados, I think they had torsion bars as well. There are a couple of cars there of the same, I guess, year, model, same class, that have the torsion bar setup. However, there were also a lot in the coilovers as well, and realistically, that's what it should have been. It should have been coilovers. Much more effective, much more comfortable. On a side note, following on from that as well, I'm actually seeing more and more people with snapped torsion bars and the spline mounts. I don't know what you'd call them, but I'm seeing a lot of people breaking those lately, and it's mildly concerning. For a long time, I've always kind of thought it was comfortable enough to pass and be okay. And then I've kind of been in a couple of other people's cars of recent, and the more you ride in other people's car, the more you go, I'm really not noticing the bumps in the road, and they're all coilovers. I've never been in someone's car in a torsion bar front end and going, geez, this is comfortable. But the more and more I ride in coilover IFS utes, the more I go, no, these are much more comfortable. PSR, I may be coming for that coilover kit one day. After August. Now, I shouldn't complain about this because I knew what I was buying when I bought it. But at the same time, the 98 kilowatts you get from factory sucks. Now, I shouldn't be so ungrateful because it does the job. These were mass produced up until 2014. That is insane. In 2014, we should have been doing much better. With more than just engine output, to be honest. But that's what we're talking about, engine output. Now, I've done a reasonable amount of work to this engine. We have an upgraded radiator. It still runs hot as balls. We have an upgraded intercooler, we have a snork, we have a 3-inch exhaust and a high flow manifold, and I'm a level with you, it still runs pretty poo. Also need to clean out my intake, but realistically, I would have hoped for better at this point. I'm actually pretty keen to run it on the dyno and see what it's making right now, because it's definitely not even the factory 98, even with all this work done to it. And what's also not helping is that exhaust manifold, again, the bolts at the rear are still coming off, which the air escapes and it gets hot and it gets really doughy and it's just so frustrating. The other thing being, we stepped back 12 kilowatts from the 3 litre to the 2.5. If you've got a ZD30, half your luck, because you've got another 12 kilowatts from factory than what we do. Now the ZD30 also had a couple of issues, so do these, but realistically a 12 kilowatt drop between models is ridiculous. If it was maybe 5 kilowatts, you'd go, oh yeah, well there's half a litre difference between the engine capacity. But whether or not it should have been tuned, to push out more, whether or not it couldn't handle it, whatever it was, that's a sucky drop. That's a sucky amount to have lost. And 98 kilowatts, I'm sorry, is just not acceptable. I'll also reiterate, it does the job, but I shouldn't be so ungrateful. Number 4 on my list is the lack of creature comforts. Now, I know that we're talking about a lightweight sports utility. Didn't have the bells and whistles that the D40 did, or the big Fandangle patrols. I'm aware. However, when my friend's 98 Pajero has cruise control, and this 2011 doesn't, my mind boggles. Also keeping in mind, these were produced up to 2014. That's whack. So to start with, let's address the cruise control issue, because there isn't any. Another thing, no steering controls. It's kind of a, and again, it's just what you get with older model cars, but no steering controls would have been nice. General seat and cabin comfort. One, you wouldn't put people in the back seat unless you didn't like them. Realistically, I'm pretty lucky. I don't really have people in the back seat. I'm not really that friendly to ever have more than one person in my car. But for the sake of the Rainbow Beach trip that we recently did, I had 5 grown men in here, and this is how I had to have my seat. And when you're driving with your knee at window height, this is not a comfortable driving position. This is not good. Now, this is something that's pretty limited in most dual cab utes. However, these are worse than normal. Honestly, these are a glorified, slightly bigger space cab. The front seats, not great. Now, they're comfortable enough. For me, they're comfortable for up to about 2 hours. Any more than 2 hours and I'm wriggling around, readjusting my back, and I've got a crook back at the best of times. But it does seem to be a common issue among D22 owners that we are not very happy with the front seats. So much so that Hurricane Fabrication have actually done a conversion rail kit for VE and Falcon seats. So I think when manufacturers of aftermarket parts are starting to make these parts for your car, I think it's safe to say that we've got an issue that we can address. The issue in this case being the bung front seats. And so coming in at a red hot number 5, these are a noisy car to drive. My arm is getting really sore from holding this camera out here. These are a noisy car to drive. Now, Nissan are notorious for noisy engines. This is no exception. I also don't have a hood lining. Wasn't there when I bought the vehicle. That is a shame. I will probably look into getting another one. But man, those drive belts, I've just found that there's nothing I can do to them to make them quiet. I can forever hear them in the cabin. It's just naturally a rattly engine anyway. You can hear everything from in here in the cab. Now that also goes without saying that I've also put a 3-inch exhaust on here, snorkel, so I've got more intake noise, more noise going out the exhaust. It's naturally louder. But from factory, before I got a snork, before I got my exhaust, they were still a really, just not a comfortable car to have a conversation in. You either want to have your music up going or you don't want to be talking. Prior to all those modifications, it was still a noisy car and there was still a lot of engine noise coming in. They're very poorly sound-proofed. There's no real effective sound deadening in these cars from factory. I'm going to be putting my own in before we go away in August because that will be the foundation for my new speaker system, my new subwoofer, and my 2 speakers in the back. But they are just a noisy car, and regardless, with the windows up and the radio to a minimum, having a conversation in this car, you still there are moments where you go, what did they say? What was that word? You couldn't hear it because it's just muffled in with the road noise. So there you go, that is my number 5 thing that I hate about this car. And so that's pretty well it for me. That is my 5 biggest pet peeves about this car. And realistically, I think it's gotten off pretty lightly. I think they're a tough little nugget for what they are, but there were so many areas where they could have been better and they just weren't. They just were not. I do, however, still stand by that they are good value for money and they are an underrated four-wheel drive. So take this with a grain of salt. Everyone loves to have a whinge every once in a while. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you have found it helpful, or you've enjoyed it for whatever reason, or that you've just sat at home nodding along going, these are all the things that I hate about my car. Let me know what you hate about your D22 in the comments below. Even if you don't drive a D22, let me know what you drive. Let me know what you hate about your model car as well. Thank you for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Don't forget you can head to the website, get your merch, stickers. There are a couple of shirts left. We are getting more stickers and hopefully some stubby coolers too soon. Updating the range a little bit, keeping it fresh. Don't forget to like, subscribe, stay safe, stay kind. Big love.